So we learned in the Mishnah on Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Bais that there's a difference between Tumas Eichlin and Tumas Nevela. Tumas Eichlin means food becoming Tamei, and Tumas Nevela means a dead carcass, which is Tamei by itself. It's not contracting Tumah from something else. It's just, it is Tamei. It died. It is Tamei. So we said that by Tumas Eichlin, you need to have a kedeya, the size of an egg. We didn't discuss this, but it's either to become tamei or to become tamei enough to give off that tumah to something else, whichever it is, Rashi or the Rambam or it is. But it needs to be the size of an egg. We said that there's a bunch of items that can be mitzdaref to that shear. We said the skin and the reitiv and the kifa, but that was our list. However, Tumas Nevela has a less of a shear. The shear is a kazayas. It's intrinsically tummy. It died. It's not that it received tumah from something else. We said for that, you can't use these other items to join to the shear for Tumas Nevela, for the shear of the kazayas. These items, the or and the reitiv and the kifa, all of these parts of the meat or the stew, will only combine for Tumas Eichlin to make it the size of a kebeya, but not the size of an olive to make it for Tumas Nevela. Okay, then we quoted a Bais, and the Bais says that even though it's not mitzdaref for Nevela, but nevertheless, if you touch it, it will still be considered like a yad or a shomer, that it will be a handle to be able to pass the tumah over to the person that's touching it. So even though it's not part of the shear of the measurement, but it still will transmit tumah to the person touching it. That's what we said.
It still needs more than 60 to be batal.
Well, I don't know how tumah, if there's such a thing as bittul by tumah.
No.
Tumah touched it, it becomes tumah. It doesn't. I don't think there's bittul there.
So by Tumas Eichlin, there's a difference between Eichlin and Nevela, right? By Nevela, it could be less, you're saying?
The shear of Nevela is a kazayas.
Kazayas, right.
But other items don't combine to that shear. As opposed to Tumas Eichlin, I can use these other items to be mitzdaref to the shear, which is very, very interesting. Because Tumas Eichlin, I would assume, is of a lesser tumah.
Right.
And nevertheless,
but it takes more to become Mitama, right? Versus Tumah. By Nevela, it's easier to become.
Nevela is tamei.
Right.
Automatically.
But you're saying Eichlin, it takes more.
Tumas Eichlin, it takes more, but I can use other things to combine. Okay, today we're going to start with the first wide line on Kuf Yud Ches. It says Tanan Hasam. It's taught over there. This is the first Mishnah in Uktzin. Kol shehu yad v'lei shomer. Anything that's a handle. For example, a bone that has a piece of meat at the end of it. And the way that you could eat the meat is you hold it by the bone and you eat the meat. So it's like a handle for this meat. So it's tamei. For example, if this yad, this bone, it doesn't have that's not the meat side of the bone, the handle side of the bone, the empty side of it touches something that's tamei, like a sheret, so then the meat becomes tamei through the bone. Umatame. And if it is tamei, the meat, and the bone touches something else, other types of food, that meat will transmit tumah through the bone into the other food. However, ve'ena mitzdaref. But the bone will not join to be a part of the kazayas. Part of the kebeya. It won't join to be part of the kebeya. Okay, this is a little different than what we said yesterday, that it does join. We'll see why. Shomer, another case. Let's say it's not a bone that has meat at one end. That's a yad. This is a shomer. This is like a piece of skin that has meat inside, or maybe if it's a bone that would have marrow inside, that would also be a shomer. Shomer means that it's a protection. It's not just a handle, some way of holding it, but it actually protects it, either the skin on it or the meat is inside. Va'afal pi she'eina yad, even though it's not used as a handle to hold it, over here it's tamei. That means that if someone touches the skin, even from the other side, not the meat side, even someone touches the skin side, and he's tamei, the meat will become tamei. Umitame, and if the meat was tamei already for whatever reason, touched the sheret, it will transmit tumah through the skin to other food that it touches. Umitztaref, and that skin will also combine to be part of the shear of the kubeya. So we learned the difference between a yad and a shomer. The yad transmits tumah and receives tumah, but the shomer also combines to the shear. That's what we learned. La yad v'lo shomer. Let's say it's not a yad or a shomer. So the example here is, for example, it's hair that's attached to the skin or to the meat. The hair on the skin. It's not. I can't use the hair as a handle, and the hair is also not a protection. So loy tamei v'loy matame. The tumah doesn't transmit through the hair, or either way, either tumah in or tumah out doesn't go through like that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
A bone with marrow, and the skin around the bone is tamei. What's with the marrow?
Okay. Now the skin really doesn't have a tumah because it's
saying
not tumas eichlin.
The meat around.
Oh, the meat around the bone. So it's not a shomer, and it's not a yad. I don't know. If the bone, it could be that it's considered that it touched the meat, and the bone is a shomer for the meat inside, and the shomer touched the meat, so it's going to become tummy inside, right? Because the bone is the shomer for the meat. For the marrow, rather. Okay, now the Gemara is discussing what's our source for this. The Gemara starts off very, very simple. For some reason, it doesn't accept something that seems so obvious, and it goes through a lengthy explanation, and then it just gets back to the obvious answer that we seem to have understood it originally. So, okay, Yadei Seichik Sivi. Where does it say in the Torah this concept of a yad? That tumah can be transmitted or contracted through a handle. Diksiv, it's written in the pasuk. V'chiyutan mayim al zera. If water falls on grain or seeds, v'nafal min evlasam alav, and a dead carcass will fall on that. Tami hu lachem, it's impure. Okay, so here it seems very obvious that we're talking about contracting tumah into the grain, that the grain becomes tamei through a nevela. And we said that how does it happen? If the grain is wet. So there's an extra word here, lachem. The Gemara learns lachem lachol shebetzarchechem. It's tummy for you, and for you means anything that's for all of your needs, which includes l'Rabbi sasayadis, includes also something that's a handle, because that's like a need of the grain to hold the grain, or to hold anything that you need for that item, like a handle. Tumah will be transmitted into the food through the handle. Uksiv, and I have another pasuk. V'chiyamas min habehema asher hi lachem. Lachem l'chol shebetzarchechem. The same thing, but it says here that if an animal will die, that is to you. Now it says, what does it mean? That is to you. That extra word to you. It's coming to tell me, l'chol shebetzarchechem, for all of your needs. I guess it means all of anything that you need to move this animal. L'Rabbi sasayadis, to include the handle. Now here the animal is tamei, so the animal is giving tumah off. The first one was the tumah going in. This is tumah going out. The animal died. It's a nevela. Tumah's going out. Yad lahachnes ulahaitzi. I have a handle that where the tumah goes in, and I have a handle where the tumah goes out, and both of them we have an extra word lachem. Shomer lahachnes ulahaitzi leitzarich kra. A shomer, not just the handle, but a shomer, which we said is a protection for this item, food item, like for example the skin that's over the meat. I don't need a pasuk for that. Why? Because kal v'chaymer miyad asi. I have a kal v'chaymer from yad. Uma yad she'ena megina. Whereas, or just as a handle which doesn't protect at all. However, machnesas u'meitzia, it makes the tumah travel in and it makes the tumah travel out, whatever it touches. Shomer, a protection for this food item, for this meat. Like kolshkein, is it not a kal v'chaymer that the tumah is going to travel in and travel out? Okay, so now we have a yad and a shomer. For the shomer we didn't have any psukim, but we have a kal v'chaymer, and for the yad, for the handle, we have two psukim. One seems to tell me clearly in, and one seems to tell me clearly out. Because the grain, obviously, the tumah is going in, and by the nevela, obviously, the tumah is going out. Shomer the kasav rachman alamali. So why does it need to say shomer? Now, here we're jumping back to the Gemara that we had before in the Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel. We had a Gemara yesterday. We said, how do we know that there is such a concept of a shomer? And we said, from Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel, we said, al kol zera zerua, that the way a person plants the seed in the ground, that he doesn't remove the shell off the seed when he puts it in the ground, that's the way it becomes tameh. So I don't know if it's a shell or just the peel around the seed.
Casing.
What is it?
Casing.
The casing. That you don't have to remove. Thank you. You don't have to remove the casing in order when you plant it. It will spread. It will germinate out of through the work its way out of the casing. So therefore, the casing is that protection for the seed. Will become tummy. It will become tummy through the casing. Why do I need that? If I know that that's the way it works by a yad, and we said kal v'chaymer to a shomer, so why do I need all kol zera zera? Why do I need that Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel that we learned yesterday? The Gemara says shma mina l'tzaref. That's totally extra. That's totally extra. It must be telling me much more than just tumah being transmitted and contracting. That's telling me that it can even combine to the shear of tumah, which means that if I need a size of an egg to make something tameh for the tumah seichlin to be effective, so the casing could be part of that shear, the size of an egg, which is more than we said by a yad. Okay, now, this is where it gets a little interesting. The Gemara asks, "Ve'ema yad lahachnes v'lei lahaitzi." Maybe I can only use one of those psukim before. Maybe tumah only goes in, but tumah doesn't go out. Shomer lahachnes lahaitzi, but by a shomer, the protection, the tumah will go in and out. Aval yad lahaitzi, but for the tumah to go out by a handle, v'shomer l'tzaref lai. But I don't have any source for shomer to be mitzaref, for the shomer to combine. Now, the difficulty with this Gemara is we seem to have said clearly that when we said b'chitun mayim al zera, that first pasuk that we mentioned today, that the tumah was going in. Okay, very good. We seem to have said clearly that v'chiyamas min behema, that the tumah is going out. So why are we just dropping this now? So the Gemara is going to get back to that and say, yes, okay, we're going to use that. But for some reason, right now, the Gemara is saying that maybe that we don't really have that clearly. Maybe that's not enough. So, if we don't have Yad Lahaitzi, then for the Shomer, How did we have a shomer is lahachnes lahitzi, tumah to go in and tumah to go out by a shomer? We learned it from a kal v'chomer from yad. Once you drop anything by yad, then you don't have it for the shomer either. Now if I have an extra pasuk for shomer, all I'm doing is I'm compensating for what I'm missing for the yad, for the handle, and now I have that the shomer, the tumah can go in and out, but I don't have any source that the shomer is mitzdarif, that it combines to the shear. Once you drop one thing by the yad, because I'm learning everything from the yad, from the handle. So shomer litzarif lay, I don't have any source that the shomer could be combined.
But wasn't that the nafkamina between the shomer and the yad, that the shomer was mitzdaref to
Yeah.
olive?
Yeah, but now if I have a yad is only machnes, it only the yad is only where we're saying here.
It can give off too much.
But if I only have that the yad is the truma gets transmitted in, but it doesn't go out. So now what's my nafkamina with the yad and the shomer? That by the shomer the truma can go out as well, can be transmitted out. So I go down one level, and now I don't have litzara. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Yad lahachnes v'loy lahaitzi loy matzis amrit. You can't say that. You can't say that tumah goes in, but tumah doesn't go out. Hashti yuli ma'ila. If the yad is able, the handle is able to contract tumah, that it was never tummy before, but the yad works, that the tumah from outside can be transmitted into what's inside. So afuke mibai, do you have to tell me that the tumah after it's already tummy that it can't work its way out? I'm not sure exactly the explanation for this logic, but to the Gemara it's very obvious that if the meat is tahar and it can become tameh through a handle, through tumah touching one end of the handle. So for sure, if the meat's tameh, it can transmit tumah out through the handle. So the Gemara says, so we'll do it exactly the opposite. What we're going to say is, maybe we only have one pasuk that tells me yad lahaitzi, and then I don't have yad lahachnes. See, if I would only have one pasuk lahachnes, it seems from the Gemara it's obvious that it would be lahaitzi as well, that the tumah would transmit through the yad outward. So ve'ima yad lahaitzi v'lei lahachnes. Maybe I only have that the tumah goes out. In other words, once it's tameh, yes, the yad can transmit tumah outwards, but lahachnes, to become tameh, I say no. The tumah is blocked by the yad. It doesn't go in. In shomer, has to have one thing extra because I have an extra pasuk for shomer. I'll call zer zerua, what we learned yesterday. So that's lahaitzi lahachnes. Over there I have both. Aval yad lahachnes v'shomer litzaref loy, but I don't have any source that for a handle tumah can get through a handle, and that a shomer is mitzdaref, that the shomer, the protection becomes part of the shear. I don't have any source for that. So the Gemara responds to this that yad yaseir ksiv. Yad yaseir ksiv. There's an extra word. There's an extra yad. Okay, so we're replacing something, and we're saying that we have an extra yad, an extra handle. Where's our extra handle? It says taner v'kirayim yutatz. An oven or another type of oven needs to be broken. So those are earthenware ovens. If they become tamei, in order for them to be pure, they need to be broken. Lachem, and the pasuk says, it concludes lachem, to you. L'chol shebetzarchechem l'rabbi sesayades. For all of your needs, that's including a yad, that's including a handle. So we have a third handle that's going to tell me, one extra one that's going to tell me yad lahachnes and yad lahaitzi, and then automatically I have a shomer with the kal v'chomer. Now I have an extra pasuk by shomer that's going to tell me that shomer is also mitzdaref. The Gemara says, Hai minayo miyaser. However, which one of these is actually extra? The Gemara says, Lichter Rachmana Bizroim. Let the Torah just write the first pasuk, V'chitin mayim al zera. V'leise hanach minayo, and that will be a binyanav. We'll see that I have over there a yad, and I'll learn there's a yad by. Okay, let's just say what we have so far. We have grain that becomes tamei with the yad. We have nevela, which I guess gives off tamei with the yad, and we also have an oven, taner v'kirayim. So we have three types of things that are tamei or becoming tamei. So if
grain,
grain, a nevela,
and an oven.
and an oven. So
Rabbi, a priest and a minister sitting on the
So we think that they're all that they're all the same, and if we were to only say it by one, the other ones would obviously be included. So it says, let it just say by the grain, and we would know the other ones automatically. The oven, it should all be the same. The Gemara says, and it will go like this. Mal Israel, just as grain. Oh, I'm sorry. We would say, the Gemara doesn't spell it out. We would say is that just as grain becomes tamei through a handle, because it says lachem, so too the oven becomes tamei through a handle, something like that. The Gemara says, 1 second, you can't say that. Mal Israel shekein tumasan meruba. There's extra tumah by Israel. Why is there extra tumah? Because first of all, Rashi gives us two reasons for this. Israel has extra tumah, which means that by Israel there's extra tumah, the yad will be effective, but not by the other ones. Why? How could Israel have extra tumah over nevela? It says, well, first of all, nevela is a certain level of tumah, and the oven only receives a certain level of tumah. But Israel grain, you could even become tamei, not just from an avatama. Like an oven needs to be tamei from an avatama, because an oven is like a vessel. But grain could be tamei from a rishon. A grain could become a sheni. If it's truma, it could become a shlishi. So grain is more sensitive to tumah. And another point over here is we learned in our Mishnah that grain has tumas eichlin. Tumas eichlin, I can use other things to be mitzdaref to the shear. And we said that by tumas nevela, I can't use other things to be mitzdaref to the shear by nevela. Nevela is bekazayas, and I can't use the bones to be mitzdaref to that kazayas. So tumas eichlin is more strict. So if it would only say yad by zera, by the grain, I would only know it by the grain because that has extra tumah. So the Gemara says, okay, so let's try it differently. Lichtev rachmana betaner. Let it just say that the yad works for a taner. V'leisi hanach minei, by an oven. And we'll learn the others from an oven. It says, Mala taner shekein metamim ba'avirei. No. An oven has a stringency that isn't applicable to other things. An oven can become tamei even without direct contact. If you take a sheretz and you put it into the airspace of the oven becomes tamei, even though it didn't touch the actual oven.
So it's similar to the other case where it's easy. Tumas eichlin.
So it has right. That's what we're doing here. We're saying it has a chumrah, so you can't learn everything else from it because it has its own stringency. And maybe the yad is effective because of that factor that it has that extra chumrah. The Gemara says, okay, well, we're left with the last one. Lichte rachmana b'nevela. So let it say only the yad by the nevela. V'leisi hanach minei, and we'll learn grain and oven from the nevela. It says, Mal nevela shekein metami adam and metami b'masa v'tumi yotze migufa. The Gemara really throws this one at us. It says that the nevela, no way, is more lenient than the other ones, and nevertheless it still has a yad. There's no way to say that. Nevela is much more machmer than chomer than all of the other ones. Why? Because first of all, a nevela can make a person tamei. Food or utensils can't make a person tamei. Second of all, a nevela can give off tumah even if you don't touch the nevela. But if you just lift it up, if it was contained or if it was on something and you lifted up that thing, that box or whatever, and there was nevela inside, you become tamei even though you didn't touch it directly. And third of all, nevela is itself intrinsically tamei. didn't receive tumah from anywhere else. Not like the oven. Oven isn't intrinsically, it touched something that made it tamei. The nevela is tamei.
Because
It
it's a
died.
dead
Of
animal.
tumor.
It's what?
Like an of tumor.
Right, it is. It's an avatamah.
Oh.
The minute animal is dead, it becomes
A nevela, if
tummy.
it wasn't shechter, right.
It becomes tummy. And it's matame.
And it's mitam others. So that's the third part. So the Gemara says, "Chadam echad layasya." You're not going to get one from one. In other words, each one of these cannot teach you to the other ones because they each have their own chumrah. Teisi chadam itarti. Let's try to learn the third one from two of them. So we'll combine two together and it will teach us the third one. Hi Teisi, which one would you like to learn out? It says, Leilach de Rachmana Bizraim v'Teisi Mihanach. Don't say the yad by the seeds, by the grain, and we'll learn it from the others. So we're going to look at the common factor. The common factor is, look, they're tamei, and the nevela is tamei, or the tanner is tamei, and it will give off tumah through the yad, or it will receive tumah through the yad. Also, the will give off tumah through the yad. That's what we have here. And so, therefore, also the Zra'im will give off tumah through the yad, through the handle that's on the Zra'im. A handle on the Zra'im could be a handle on food, could be the Masechtas Uktzin is all about the stems of the fruit. That if you touch the stem, you could, or if something touches the stem, it could become tamei because the fruit was tamei. Right? Like you have the little piece that's hanging off the apple, or those little cherries. Those stems. So.
Well, don't you make fun of cherries?
Post fact, I don't understand. So, in a case like that, if the fruit, it's post. You're saying post facto if the fruit falls off.
No, if the fruit becomes tamei.
The fruit becomes tummy while it's.
No, it's not attached.
Okay.
It's not attached. It becomes tamei, and how does it become tamei? Because it got wet and it becomes tamei, and now something touches the stem.
While it's attached to the fruit.
Yeah, while it's
Obviously.
attached to the fruit.
Okay.
So it should become tamei because why? Because I have that same sort of tumah coming out of nevela, and I have that same sort of tumah coming off an oven. The Gemara says, no, 1 second. Those two have a stringency that doesn't apply to grain, because an oven and nevela don't need to be wet to give off tumah. It's only grain that needs to be wet to become tamei. So I would say that the grain cannot be learned from there. Those have a chumrah. The grain, that doesn't apply. There is no yad by grain. It has to get wet. It sounds like it's a totally separate halacha that we don't have anywhere else, and therefore we should be more lenient by grain. Amar Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua. Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua comes along and says, Perish lehuchsharu, fruit that's not wet, that never got wet, ketanish lenigma malach dami, is just like an oven that's incomplete. Which means like this: in order for a vessel to become tamei, or to give off tumah, even to become tamei, it needs to be a complete vessel. It can't be a vessel that you were in the middle of making and you never finished. It's all these discussions. At what point is a utensil considered ready to use? Because in the olden days they would make utensils in the house, and they would use them even if they weren't finished. At what point is it considered normal to use, even though it's not finished? It was a machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish about the knife. If it wasn't polished, remember there was like a big discussion. If it's sharp but not polished, is it considered complete? So comes along Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua is the end of the towards the end of the Amirayim. He says that no. You just said that there's a stringency in a nevela and in a tanner that isn't applicable to zraim, to grain. And that stringency is that a nevela and a tanner don't need to be wet to give off tumah or to become tamei. And by the grain does. He says it's not true. He says because grain becoming wet is the same thing as an oven being finished. And if an oven isn't finished, it doesn't become tamei. So too, unwashed grain is also not tamei. But it's nothing different than an oven being finished. So therefore, don't tell me that the tanner has a stringency that's not by grain. It's the same stringency. Washing grain, it's a good one. Washing grain is completing the oven, and it's the same halacha. On the side of my Gemara, they quote, the Chinuch explains that what's the reason that grain needs to become tamei in order to become tamei is because it needs to be nigmar malachtan, it needs to be complete. So the Chinuch learns from this Gemara that that's the logic of why does grain need to be wet in order to become tamei? Where does that come from? So it says in the pasuk, but what's the reason for that? So he says it has to be a complete, finished product, and if the grain is still dirty, that's not considered like it's fully grown, or it's not considered like it's not ready. Ela parachachis. Rather, we ask. The Gemara says you can ask a little differently. Malahanach. Whereas for those two, shekain mitamin shlei benagia. Both of those become tamei without touching. Why? Because an nevela becomes tamei without anything touching it. It just died. That was an easy one. And a tanner becomes tamei without anything touching it because it's mitamei ma'avirei. If a sheretz goes into its airspace, it becomes tamei. We're joining those two things together, saying both of them become tamei without touching. A little different, but yes, that's true. They both don't have touching. Timer bizram shei mitamin ela benagia. But when it comes to grain, it needs to be touched in order to become tamei. It needs to be actual direct contact. So the Gemara says, okay, so we can't learn grain from those two. So don't learn from don't write by a tanner, and we'll learn from nevela and grain. The Gemara says, nevela and grain are both types of food. Meat and grain, but an oven is not food. We mentioned before yesterday that you can ask on a tzad shava a pircha koldahu any sort of question. You say 1 second, you just can't compare that, right? If there were two things, you made a difference between if you're learning from one thing, two things, or three things.
A nevela that wasn't shechted, you can't eat. It's not roy lachila. A zera you can use it.
It's not roy lachila. It's not roy lachila halachically, but it's roy lachila for tumas eichlin. Tumas eichlin isn't negeya to it because it's tamei from a kazayas, and it has the tumas nevela is a stricter tumah than tumas eichlin in most of the cases. Okay, so the Gemara says leilachtav rachmana ben nevela v'tesim mihanach. Could have figured this out originally. What you want to do whenever you want to do these comparisons, what the Gemara is going to do is it's going to take the two extremes, and learn the moderate one from the two extremes. That's the way.